I think the practice sort of formed out of just what I used to do as a kid, just like what I was interested in, what I would spend every spare chance I had doing, which was stuff like graffiti or riding BMX bikes or skateboarding. And then I went to art school and started learning how to kind of organize my ideas, and then started to kind of resist some of those ideas. And then I realized that what I really wanted to be doing was the stuff that I was always doing anyway before art school. And then I sort of joined these two worlds, this idea of like contemporary art and the things that I would do for recreation or enjoyment, which actually ended up becoming like my passion.
Shaun's an Australian artist whose reputation is becoming global. So the opportunity to work with an artist of that stature at the Delaware Pavilion is incredibly exciting. Also, we've produced almost all new works for this project. So I've been working with him over the past kind of year, developing those projects. And for me, that's the most rewarding element of being a curator. So we have the skateboard ramp on the roof, which is both a sculptural object, but also it's a usable skate ramp. So it does two things. People that have a knowledge of contemporary art can approach that installation and see references to the history of sculpture, particularly minimalism. But, young BMXers and skateboarders are attracted to it for a completely different reason, that it's a usable ramp. But hopefully they will look at the information. They know it's an art object, so it's an inroad for them into contemporary art, which possibly they may not usually have access to.
I guess with like something like the ramp upstairs, I was interested in this kind of modernist form, so this kind of like Malevich kind of cross form, and even the scaffolding being like a cube. I never wanted to work against it, always with the building in terms of its architecture. I think I always love the seaside. I love like to be able to look out at a horizon line and just see all of that space. And it kind of connects to ideas that I'm interested in art history, like this idea of like the landscape as a genre, or notions of like, say, the sublime, where we have to kind of place ourselves in relation to the scale of nature.
What Shaun does incredibly well is mixes references to art history, particular moments, the sublime, the romantic landscape, and mixes them with references to contemporary culture.
I feel like there's a lot of connections between extreme sports athletes and artists, actually. So in a way, my practice is trying to make all of these connections and conversations between different groups of people.
He often uses the architecture of a building as projection surfaces, and that creates a very immersive environment, a very kind of physical environment within which to view his films. So for instance, down here in Gallery 1 there are two films. There's Broken Dancers, which is two opposing projections which are huge. You can't view both screens at the same time. So it's a very physical experience that places you in the centre of the gallery. The Lambretta Triumph film in the next room along has been stretched to extreme panoramic form, which is quite an unusual format. There aren't many people that have watched a film in that kind of format before. So again, it's kind of a very disorientating and physical experience. I think there's two things going on in the motorcycle intersection installation. There's the fact that the motorcycle is embedded into the wall, reinforcing the formal qualities of that Triumph Daytona. as a beautiful, streamlined object. The other thing is that you can never see the entirety of the motorcycle. And I think that makes you think about all of the other associations that motorcycles have. Associations of freedom, danger, and rebellion. The fact that that's an incredibly fast machine. Anyone that goes out riding one of those motorcycles is kind of potentially dicing with death. Shaun's had this really interesting idea that because of the change in the seasons over the 5-month run of the show and some of the subject matter that he's included within the exhibition, so for instance Jack and the Green, the mythological figure of Jack and the Green, it's very much related to the seasons and English folklore. So throughout the 5-month run, films will be changed, sculpture will be swapped out, and for instance these light boxes will be changed, so that the exhibition will be in constant flux in the same way that seasons are.
I guess when I found out that I was showing for 5 months, I was a little bit intimidated. Like, that's a long time, you know. And then I started thinking, wow, the show runs over like seasons. It's like we're heading towards summer in this show, and I wanted to reflect that sense of change that takes place over a 5-month period within the work itself. So I would sort of take on this idea of transformation or flux like in the seasons, and then I would just swap works in and out. And they're not going to be coordinated to the seasons. It's not like there's going to be like a summer version of every work here. It's just that they will change, like they'll kind of transform. After I was at the Venice Biennale representing Australia a few biennales ago now, the former late director of this space, Alan Hayden, came up to me and started to have a conversation with me about the possibility of showing here. And finally it's happened after many years. So I sort of dedicate the show that I've got here to Alan, because he really was a motivating force and a really great supporter of my practice. But also he introduced me to the area around the pavilion, like Hastings and what was happening in Bexhill with a lot of the like the BMX riders and skateboarders, and he encouraged me to do a bit of research into maybe like formulating an idea for a show, and that took many years. When I think about it, we're talking several years. So I really hope that Alan would like this show, because it's really for him.